Hello, and welcome to the session Singing for Wellbeing, Research Perspectives. My name is Sue Dutton, and I have been a teaching artist with Dance for Parkinson's now in Sydney for about 5 years. Before we go any further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we are joining from, all of us today. I am joining from Wiradjuri country in central New South Wales. I want to pass my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge Indigenous and First Nations participants who are joining us today. Firstly, let me mention that this session will be 40 minutes long, and we will break towards the end of the session for approximately 5 minutes or so to take questions. The chat function is open and is being monitored, so if you would like to ask questions, please put them in the chat and they will be fed back through me to our speaker at the end. I am really looking forward to today's session. We're going to explore the research perspectives on singing for wellbeing, which, it seems obvious. Singing is such a wonderful thing, makes you feel so good. Let me briefly introduce our speaker, and then I will invite her to share further information about herself. Our speaker is Dr. Melissa Forbes, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Southern Queensland, and she has conducted research into the health and wellbeing experiences of using the singing voice in different settings. So now I will, without any further ado, pass over to Dr. Forbes, and she can tell you more about herself and her work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. Really excited to be here today, and it's just been such a wonderful festival so far. Congratulations to everybody who's been involved. I've really enjoyed some of the sessions, and I hope you're going to enjoy my session today. So as Sue said, I'm a lecturer at University of Southern Queensland. So I'm a music educator as well as a singer who researches singing. And I was lucky enough 4 years ago in 2017 to partner with our local Parkinson's support group to start up a singing group in Toowoomba. So it was the first singing group for Parkinson's in the region. And that whole experience since that time has been such a privilege to be involved in. It's taken me on a wonderful journey of discovery and learning about Parkinson's and about the amazing people within the Parkinson's community. And I just draw a lot of inspiration from the people in my group who are just, a constant source of wonderment to me about how they go about their lives in a positive way. So up until this year, our singing group was facilitated by graduates of our USQ music program, and both of our facilitators had to leave for various reasons. So I actually took over facilitation of our group this year. So I started off my involvement with our group as a researcher, and now I'm actually out in front of the group running sessions. So I'm going to be approaching this topic from a couple of different perspectives, from the research perspective and the practice perspective as well. Okay, so let me just make sure I can move my slides along. There's 3 main themes or sections to my presentation today. And the first one is that I want to impress upon everybody what a miracle singing really is. It's a physiological miracle, and I'm going to explain to you why I think that. So that's the first little part of the talk. And then the second section is going to look at why singing is so beneficial for people with Parkinson's disease. And then finally, I'm going to look at a couple of research projects that I've done, and what they look at is singing for people with Parkinson's, but from the perspective of carers and also from the perspective of the people who facilitate the groups. So a slightly different take on how we experience group singing, looking at those different perspectives. Okay, so my very first point that I want to impress upon you is that singing is a miracle. Now, why? Why is singing a miracle? It's something that most of us have done at some point in our lives. We all talk and we use our voices every day to the best of our ability. But consider this, we were never really designed to use the voice in that way, and I'm going to explain to you why. So on the right of the slide, we have a picture of the larynx, looking at it from the top down. Now, obviously, this picture is a lot bigger than a real life larynx. And if you can think of a diameter of a 5-cent coin, that's really how long our vocal folds are within our larynx. So if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you've got those two white lines. They're actually the vocal folds, and they're what open and close to create sound when air passes through them. So why weren't we designed to use the voice in this way? In actual fact, the evolutionary reason for having a larynx is two things. First of all, it enables us to brace, to lift heavy objects. So like that, okay? That is a really important evolutionary purpose for the larynx. It also enables us to brace in childbirth. And no, I'm not giving a demonstration of that. And then the other really important purpose in terms of our survival that the larynx serves is that it actually operates as a secondary protection against choking, right? So we have the epiglottis that sits over the trachea, and it's our primary means of defense. Okay, when food or water hits it, stops us from choking. But then we also have the larynx, which acts as a valve to open and close. And if the epiglottis lets something through, then we have the larynx and the vocal folds to help us survive, basically, if anything gets down there. So when we think about why we have a larynx in the first place, it's really got very little to do with communication. But of course, Homo sapiens are very intelligent beings, and we have evolved over thousands of years to use our voice in myriad ways. So we communicate with each other, but we also have figured out a way of using this kind of quite bizarre apparatus, really, to create the most amazing sounds. And these are sounds which are capable of moving other people to tears, or moving ourselves to tears, or making us all feel incredibly joyful. So this is one of the reasons I think that singing is such a miracle. And the other reason, it's a bit of a scientific one, but listen to this. If I sing the note, ah, so that's A440, that's the pitch, A440. So that's the A above middle C on a piano, right? When I'm singing that pitch, ah, my vocal folds are opening and closing 440 times per second. Okay. Every time I say that, I find that kind of mind blowing. And if I sang that note up the octave, which I'm not going to do because I'm not that warmed up, it would be 880 times per second. So when you think about what it takes to sing just a basic phrase, then, a pop song or an aria, you can really start to appreciate the miracle of singing. And here I'm only speaking about one aspect of what it takes to create the sung voice. And I haven't even talked about respiration or the other factors. Okay. So I just wanted to share with you that little tidbit, because every time I think of, the fact that we sing so much in our lives, I think it's a good idea to kind of connect every now and then with the true wonder of that act. So what happens to somebody when that ability to talk, to say your name, to introduce yourself is taken away because of something like Parkinson's? What can we do in that situation? All right, so why singing for Parkinson's? We now have a considerable body of evidence to demonstrate that regular singing has great therapeutic value for people with Parkinson's disease. Now, in an ideal world, all people with Parkinson's would have access to speech-language therapy, such as Lee Silverman's voice therapy program, which is an intensive course of voice therapy and is shown to be quite effective in Parkinson's. This type of voice therapy would then ideally be followed by a regular program of singing to maintain the gains of that type of voice therapy. So one of the pioneers in the field of group singing for Parkinson's is Grenville Hancox. He's in the UK, and he speaks very passionately about singing on prescription. What a great idea. Let's prescribe this to people as an adjunct to all of the other ways that people with Parkinson's seek treatment. So group singing is just this wonderful non-pharmacological intervention which can be incorporated into a full program of treatment. So singing on prescription. As we know, Parkinson's affects all aspects of voice production. It affects respiration, the way that we breathe. It affects phonation, the way that people make sound. It affects the resonators and articulation. Regular singing mobilizes and strengthens all of these things. And in particular, there's really good evidence now that regular singing can increase vocal intensity for people with Parkinson's. So people with Parkinson's suffer from hyperkinetic dysarthria and dysphonia, which impacts on vocal loudness or intensity, creates that low, whispery, hoarse voice. There was a controlled trial in Victoria a couple of years ago, which showed that there was genuine improvement in vocal loudness and intensity after a regular program of group singing. So I think in terms of the physical effects, we now have good evidence around vocal loudness. In addition to these physical benefits, group singing promotes well-being and cognitive functioning. Now, most singing groups will incorporate cognitive challenges, such as movement songs, remembering lyrics, using percussion, that type of thing. So in other words, in our singing groups for people with Parkinson's disease, we do a lot of multitasking. We ask everybody to sing, which is in itself a really complicated process, but we also ask our singing group members to do all of these other kind of motor skills to really work on cognitive functioning at the same time. Perhaps the strongest evidence that we have at the moment in terms of the positive effect of group singing for people with Parkinson's is on well-being. A group singing engenders a real sense of camaraderie, and from a psychological perspective, it can build a new social identity for people with Parkinson's and their carers. And I'm going to discuss in a little bit more detail these ideas when I turn to my research. So before I do that, let's take a quick break from talking, and I'm going to give you a sample of the types of things that I might do in a session. So if you're in an environment where it's okay and it's safe to do a bit of moving around and making a bit of noise, then please feel free to join in with me. Otherwise, just sit back and enjoy my demonstration. So the very first thing that we would always do is to do a little bit of stretching and physical warming up. And the best way to do this is usually to start with shoulder rolls, this type of thing. Arm circles. And sometimes I might, try to incorporate a little bit of a challenge with things like this, with movements like this. So if I'm going in one direction, I might say, everybody try and go in the same direction, or go in the opposite same direction, or go in opposite directions, that type of thing. So incorporating that idea of cognitive challenges. So some physical warming up. Then we always do a bit of breath work or breathing. Now, obviously, the breath is the power source for the voice. And this can be particularly challenging for people with Parkinson's. So what we take is very long, slow breaths to start with. And I love to get people to incorporate as much of their body as they can into taking these breaths. So things like this, raising the arms high overhead, doing kind of twinkling stars with fingers, taking that breath in. And then as you're breathing out, asking people to really try to keep the rib cage nice and elevated. So for somebody who has Parkinson's, if they're quite kind of hunched over, even a tiny gain in terms of elevating that rib cage is going to be a really great win for them on that day. So let's do a couple of deep breaths. And if you're sitting at a desk watching me right now, I'd strongly encourage you to do this. Us desk-bound warriors need to move more. And all the while thinking about how we're holding our body, really trying to keep the rib cage up and elevated, because this is really important for singing, and trying to sustain sung phrases. So we work a little bit on respiration and good posture. And then we start to vocalize. So we'll do things, and a lot of these things are used in the Lee Silverman voice therapy, from what I understand. So things like sirens, and I'll demonstrate in a minute, but what these do is get you to really use your voice from the lowest part of your vocal range to as high as you can go comfortably. I have to stress that everything that we ask people to do needs to feel okay. It needs to feel comfortable for them. So a siren is something like this. That kind of thing. And sometimes I might conduct it. So, that type of thing. We then might do something along the lines of working on dynamics. So again, dynamics refers to loudness and softness and degrees or gradations of that, and that can be challenging for people with Parkinson's. So we work on stuff that's loud and stuff that uses the lower range of the voice. So the Santa sound, and this is something that I use with all of my singing students as well. Sounds something like this. Ho, 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 ho. And I'm trying to encourage people in the group to be as energized as possible when they're doing these types of exercises. And if they get their body into it, even better. So that's kind of low and loud. And then we might do something completely the opposite. So something higher and softer. So we call this the pigeon sound. Ooh, 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 that type of thing. And again, I can't stress enough that like these are exactly the types of things I would use if I was teaching a professional singer. They work on what we call vocal registration. So being able to use the lower part and the higher part of the voice, and then being able to integrate those two things. So a lot of the same things apply within the context of a singing group for people with Parkinson's disease. And once we've done all of that, made lots of silly noises and, lots of silly actions and things, we then might sing a very simple melody like a round. And one of my favorites is Bella Mama, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. The benefit of singing rounds like this is they're usually very simple melodies. They're usually short. They have repeated lyrics, so you don't have to worry about remembering the words. And they cover a kind of smaller vocal range. So it's a really nice way to kind of ease people into singing actual repertoire. All right, so Bella Mama goes like this. And if you can, I would love it for you to join along. I will just imagine you all doing this with me out there in cyberspace. And it goes like this. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. Okay, you've heard it once. Sing along with me. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, Bella Mama, eh. So something like that is a really simple and easy way to have the singing group actually work in harmony, because we can divide the group up into smaller groups, have one group start, the next group starts, and then the next group starts. And what you actually get as a result of that is a beautiful harmony without people even having to bother to learn parts or to learn, the alto line or whatever. So I find for my group, because we have a smaller number of people, that works really well. And sometimes, we can create a really beautiful sound with something as simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to now hand it over to Sue. She's going to play a short video. And this video just demonstrates a group of people with Parkinson's singing, but It's a compilation of groups from across the world, and it was put together by Dr. Elizabeth Stegmuller, who is from Iowa State University, and she's one of the pioneering researchers in terms of group singing for Parkinson's disease. And every year she has an online festival for group singing for Parkinson's, and she creates this compilation of all these different groups singing the same song. And so there'll be notes at the bottom of the screen showing you where the groups are from, and you'll see that there's a number of groups from Australia, including my group, which is Parkinson's from Toowoomba. So thank you.
Sing a song, sing out loud, sing out strong. Sing of good days ahead, sing of happy, not sad. Sing a song, make it simple to last your whole life long. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing a song. La 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 Sing a song. Sing along. Sing of love there could be. Sing for you and for me. Sing a song. Make it simple to last your whole life long. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. Just sing a song. Sing a song. Just sing a song.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of what we would do for the remainder of the session. So normally the warming up and all of that stuff would take around 20 minutes, and then we would spend the rest of the hour actually singing repertoire. And now what I'm going to talk to you about is a couple of research projects that I've done, and I'll just share my screen again. As I said at the beginning, these actually focus on the other people in the room during these singing groups. So the first research project I want to talk about is about how spouse carers experience group singing for Parkinson's. And then the second is how do the singing group facilitators experience this type of work? So my carers study came about because I felt that there was a bit of an absence of the caring voice just within the group singing literature for Parkinson's. And I wanted to really delve into their experience, because it's so important for us to make sure that they are being cared for, and that they have opportunities to engage with others, because the caring burden can be quite great for people who care for people with Parkinson's. And this caring work is so often borne by a family member or a spouse or a partner. And it just so happened that all of the carers in my group at the time were all spouses of the person with Parkinson's. So we had a nice group of carers who I interviewed and tried to kind of tease out what meaning this activity held for them. So I looked at the carers' experiences through the lens of the social cure approach. So this is a theory, I guess you could say, a psychological theory, which says that if we can develop a social identity or a strong sense of belonging to a collective, it actually creates psychological resources for us, and it helps us to get through tough times. It produces better health and wellbeing outcomes. So it's a really important thing to develop, social identity. And I wanted to figure out whether group singing actually created a social identity for these spouse carers in the group. So what I found was that indeed these carers did feel a very strong sense of social identity because of their membership of this particular group. And this kind of revealed itself in a number of ways. They felt a sense of belonging in the sense of a shared caring identity. So the ability to get together with other carers. They felt a strong sense of social support in that they were able to be very open and honest and vulnerable with other carers in the group. And people talked about this kind of sense of just being able to be understood without having to explain things. And I think that that can be quite a wearing thing on carers and people with Parkinson's as well, is this kind of explaining the situation to other people who may not be familiar with the disease. So this kind of automatic understanding was really important. A sense of purpose was also a really important experience for the carers. So one carer who has actually lost his wife to Parkinson's and still comes to the group, he feels a strong sense of purpose attached to the group because he is a good singer and he's a musician. And so he is able to come to the group and help bolster the group sound. And that provides him with a sense of purpose. And then because all of these carers were married to the person with Parkinson's, what they described was an increased sense of agency within the marital relationship. They really enjoyed going out as a couple to attend group sessions. They loved seeing their spouse in the group, singing with everybody and really enjoying themselves. They were able to see that person beyond the label of Parkinson's and remember who they were before Parkinson's. It was very satisfying for them to be able to see their spouse really enjoying themselves through singing. And so in summary, what I found was that there was this kind of identity gain that occurred because these carers were participating in group singing. So pre-Parkinson's diagnosis, people are normal, doing normal things. They live their life as a couple, as an individual. But then when the diagnosis hits, there's this sense of identity loss. And the way that the carers described it was that life with Parkinson's is a very small life. They felt like opportunities were diminishing and that life was kind of closing in on them. Doors were closing and they felt a sense of gravity and drift. But the group gave them a sense of identity gain. So this new valued social identity, this ability to kind of push back just a little bit against what Parkinson's had taken away from them. And here's a quote from my study. This is from one of the carers. Life as a carer can be fairly empty. I think the problem is that you can get sidelined and you can become insular. The singing group has meant that the gravity or drift into that has not been as strong, and that we're pushing back against those things and re-engaging with people and relationships in a situation which was otherwise just closing in, diminishing. So the group means a lot because nobody likes what happens to you, and it's very hard to reverse that trend when you're by yourself. The next piece of research I'll very briefly talk to you about is work that I've done on facilitators of singing groups for health and wellbeing. On the left here, we have Claire, who was one of our USQ music graduates who led the group for a number of years. And the group is actually performing in public in a beautiful park out at Highfields at Toowoomba. So my research into facilitators of singing groups for health and wellbeing, I interviewed a range of facilitators from across Australia, many of whom worked with people with Parkinson's, but others worked with people with depression, other kind of isolated groups, that type of thing. And the facilitators experienced their work as extremely meaningful. And again, I wanted to look at it from a psychological perspective. And what I found was that our singing group facilitators experienced their work through positive emotions, always feeling joy. That was the big word that came through all the time. Their work gave them joy. They also felt a sense of engagement or flow when they're working with their groups. So they would lose track of time. They were so into what they were doing. They built a whole range of positive relationships through their work with the group. Their work gave them a sense of meaning, that what they were doing mattered, that people actually valued their skills and their contribution. And they also felt a strong sense of accomplishment. And listening to Linda speak yesterday about her group, she talks about them, being challenged with these really complex musical things, these musical tasks. And when the group is challenged like that in a musical way, it's not only really satisfying for the people in the group, but it's satisfying for the facilitator as well. So these facilitators said that facilitating, it's not work in the traditional sense. It's a unique relationship between the facilitator and the group. And it's also a unique mode of performance. Facilitators felt like they could, perform in front of their group and with their group. It was a collaborative kind of experience. And then finally, they felt that facilitation was the ideal match for them in terms of their own personal values, their desire to give something back to the community, and their ability to use the strong musical and pedagogical skills that they all possessed. So that's a very brief snapshot into some of my research. Here are some references. And on the left-hand side, I have a picture of a really great book, really like a Bible, for anyone wanting to establish a singing group for people with Parkinson's. It's a fantastic, very short, very cheap, but packed with excellent information. So I heartily recommend that book to you all. And in closing, I wanted to just put my Twitter account up there if anyone wants to get in touch with me. And I'm looking forward to having, 5 minutes for questions, hopefully, or discussion. And if there's one thing I'd like everyone to take away from this session, it's that our ability to sing is indeed a miracle, but it's very much a case of we have to use it or we lose it. So singing, like dance, is a physical activity. And if we don't do it often, we lose our strength and we lose our conditioning. So use it or lose it. Our voice is inside us. We take it everywhere we go, and it can be available to us at any time to enhance our mood and to promote a sense of well-being. So I have a strong conviction that singing isn't just for reality TV shows like The Voice, and it isn't just for the performance stage. In our society, singing has become very much about the performance of a few rather than an experience for all of us to enjoy. So let's reclaim that. Let's reclaim singing for all of us. And just like talking, just like taking a walk or dancing around the kitchen, singing is another fantastic activity to include in everybody's wellbeing toolkit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can see so many similarities between singing and the benefits of singing and the benefits of dance. All the things that you were talking about, the joy and not only the exercise of the parts of the body, obviously, but the cognitive side of it and the side of the well-being. I really thank you so much. That was really interesting presentation, and we are now going to open up the session to questions. I don't know whether any have come in through the chat. One that came up for me that I was thinking of as we went through is, do you have any contacts around the country for singing groups that we could put our people in touch with, because I know there are so many people who already belong to singing groups, and there are so many people who love singing and would like to do it, that it would be wonderful to have some contact names for them so they could actually join some groups.
Definitely, Sue. And I think we need to do a bit more work around group singing in Australia. We're not quite as organised as other countries. So in the UK, there's really great kind of national peak bodies, I guess, around these types of activities for group singing for health and wellbeing. And I think, we have a bit of a need here to maybe join forces. But I certainly have a number of contacts that I can pass on to people. So
it's actually, that's an interesting point, joining forces. I mean, we could do, I think singing and dancing at the same time is probably a little bit too much, but we could amalgamate the sessions without a doubt.
And actually we've got a Dance for Parkinson's group up here in Toowoomba, and we're going to do a combined session. Erica Rose, brainchild of everything, fantastic, suggested that we do a combined session, and we're going to do that later in the month. So I think they're especially a lovely complement to each other,
especially for perhaps our seated participants who actually can't perhaps move as much as others, and then we can swap it around a bit. But I think that's a lovely idea. And we do try and incorporate not a lot of singing, but obviously some voice work in our classes, because we understand how important that is. And I've taken lots of notes for me to have some ideas of what I can incorporate into my classes. So that's really good. Thank you. I'm just getting a note here. I saw a comment in the chat. Somebody said they attended a dance and singing for Parkinson's workshop, and they were dancing to an instrumental Delilah by Tom Jones when they all suddenly burst into song. And they thought it sounded particularly good, and what fun it was as well. And that's the whole purpose. Even improvised is fantastic too, impromptu.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I know who might have made that comment, and I think they felt they were a flash mob.
That's exactly what it says. We felt like a flash mob. Everybody wants to be in a flash mob, I think.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yes, and Gordon has said also, yes, we often get a lot of our dancers just singing in our classes. Nobody seems to mind. There's no inhibitions, and singing is just such a wonderful thing.
I think there was a question there from Erica Rose about the facilitators. I can speak just briefly about that. I think the facilitators for group singing are a really special bunch. They actually interestingly range from people who are highly skilled musicians to people who are really, would call themselves amateur musicians. So to me, there's a few important ingredients to what makes a good facilitator, but they're mostly kind of interpersonal skills, I think. So making people feel welcome, making people feel included and energized, building a session so that people walk away feeling, really good and on a high. They have to kind of be very enthusiastic people who are able to kind of bring a whole room with them. And yes, that does take strong musical skill, and to a certain extent, it takes a bit of pedagogical or teaching skill as well. But really, I think it's all about the type of, it's really good work for certain types of people. Who have that kind of capacity to really motivate a group. To me, that's one of the most important attributes, I guess, of a good facilitator.
I particularly liked the research that you did into carers. I really think, as you say, it's an overlooked area, and just doing the research into the well-being that's of the carer, I think that's wonderful. And I'm so glad that you've actually got the data on that.
Yeah, because there had been research on carers for other conditions like dementia and things like that in the creative arts and wellbeing space, but not so much on carers for Parkinson's. So it was just a good opportunity to explore that avenue. And I think that the stories that kind of came out of that research were really meaningful to read and to hear. And Yeah, it's just, we can't underestimate the resource that we create when we create groups like this. And I think, you know, advocating for kind of recognition, policy recognition, and getting governments on board to understand that these things have genuine value for people is a really
Absolutely. And I
important
was
body of work.
that was one of the things that came up yesterday, though, is quantifying the well-being and the joy, which obviously is just so difficult to do in research. And that's some of the major benefits that people get out of dancing and singing in this arena, unfortunately. What's just one last question, I think just came in on where do you see your next research effort going?
I'm actually at the moment, I'm really interested in looking at the individual in terms of using singing for well-being. So I think the challenge with the research around group singing is, what is it about singing in particular that gives us these effects in a group setting? Because the group itself gives us all of these social benefits. So trying to kind of really narrow down what is it about singing in particular that engenders a sense of well-being. And I think to do that, I have to kind of look at it within the individual rather than in the group. So kind of controlling for that group influence.
Yes. I think we're out of time, but thank you so much. I found that really interesting, and as I said, so useful in our classes as well. So I'll certainly be using some of the things that you said. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now we are about to take a short break, I believe, and the next session, I believe, is painting for Parkinson's. So please have a break and then join us for the next session. So thank you very much, Dr. Forbes, and everyone for being a part of this session. Thank you.